morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me today. This is the Power of the Hashtag presentation. This is the second time I've actually ran this presentation. The first time we had a few technical issues, and I know a couple of you were disappointed that you weren't able to get here on the day we actually did it last. So my apologies for the technical issues that we had last time. I'm hoping today we won't have as many or none at all. I'm hoping everyone can see my screen. I'm hoping everyone can hear me okay. And so this is the Power of the Hashtag workshop, and we're going to dive into sort of what hashtags are good for, what you can use them for, whether you should start your own hashtag, whether they can be used to build a business or to even build a little following. We'll look at some things around trending, whether it's best to get something trending or whether it's a case of just building more content, adding more content into it, rather than focusing purely on that one tweet or that one Instagram post that you want to get trending. So to get started, my name is Robert Haler. Oh, bear with me. Okay, so my name is Robert Haler. I'm the Managing Director here at Boost Digital Media, and we're a website design agency based in Torquay. So we typically build websites for businesses scaling from 100,000 to 500,000 in terms of turnover. We're also focused on social media, so we do a lot of work on things like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So we tweet regularly. We also tweet for the clients, and we have set up social media accounts for some of our clients to start using to promote their own business. In 2012, I set up a small hashtag simply called Boost Torbay. The idea behind that hashtag was that businesses in the local area of where I live, which is Torbay, they would put in hashtag Boost Torbay on Twitter or on social media, and then in turn retweet that. I retweeted to our followers, which back then we started off as 0, and over time we've just grown steadily to the point now where we're hitting around the 10,300 margin in terms of followers, which is great. And we also reach, on average, around about 1 million accounts every year without much of a problem. In 2015, I became Hootsuite certified, so I took their what was then their current syllabus, and now 5 years on, and not long after I took the course, they actually then redid the entire syllabus, meaning I've now got to redo it and sit down and actually get myself certified again. But that is on my list of things to do for this year. As a result of the hashtag Boost Torbay that I started a couple of years ago, we noticed that our traffic from social media to the website had increased. 17% of all traffic of the 22,500 visitors came via social media to our website, which is fantastic. And in turn from that, people were converting into making inquiries, finding out about local events, finding out about where they could list their business on our website. So we started to notice a small trickle of people using more of our services, using more of our offering for them. In total, I have over 14 years experience within the digital industry. So my main background is programming, so I know a lot about how to make a website work under the bonnet and make it look great, to make it work. And that's my main sort of background. And as I said, then there's the experience of social media on top of that. So that's my main experience sort of area altogether. Okay, so Boost Digital Media was founded in 2015. It was set up to design and build tailored websites for businesses in Torbay and South Devon. So what that is that we don't necessarily go on to things like Theme Forest or any other sort of theme farm. The reason being is we believe that each business that comes to us is looking for a website that is tailored to their requirements, tailored to their needs. They're looking for that, not the off-the-shelf package. They're looking for something a bit more special, something that's going to make them stand out from the crowd. We're a team of 2, so it's myself and as managing director and an in-house graphic designer who makes our websites look absolutely amazing. They make them look pretty, whereas my main background is making sure the code and it's functional, it's working. Our full services are shown there, so they include website design, hosting, logo design, graphic design, SEO and social media, and we occasionally do some print work as well for local businesses. So we do quite a broad spectrum of different bits and pieces that we do. And we also host 30 websites. Most of them are local. That's so we have a few that are national and a bit further afield from Torbay. Overall, our range of clients are small startups all the way up to medium-sized SMEs that we do work for. And touch wood, they've all been happy with the service that we provided with them. And yeah, we've got some great feedback on things like Google reviews and so forth about that. Okay, so I seem to be having some problems with my screen. It seems to keep hanging every so often. Apologies for that. So in this next sort of hour or so, we're going to be looking at hashtags, their history. Hashtags have been around a lot longer than just on Twitter. They were previously used in other parts of computing. We'll look at the hashtag of today, including the top 10 hashtags that are used near on every single day of the week. We'll dive into hashtag etiquette. So that is looking at how many hashtags you should be using, whether you should be using 3 on Instagram, whether you should be 9 on Twitter, how many different hashtags should you be using. We've also included some live examples in that section of the actual presentation as well. We'll also look at keyword hashtags. So for those of you that use Pinterest, you maybe just know that the keywords you type into the search bar at the top there, they actually trigger pins based on those results, which is quite fascinating. I'm looking into how you can use Pinterest for hashtags with Pinterest. We'll look at defining your own hashtag and using it, and then more importantly, getting other people to use it. We'll dive into emojis. There's some great examples of emoji use, but then there's also some examples of emojis where it has not been used to the quite so in the correct context. We'll look at also how they can impact on your digital assets, so things like your website, any kind of applications that you have, maybe even cross-promoting your Facebook page onto Twitter, and so on and so forth. And we'll also look at making it trendy, or whether you should make something trendy on Twitter or social media. In the bottom there, we've got a small little note to say that we have built in some tea and coffee, so toilet stops. So if you do want to go recharge your coffee pots, we have put some little breaks in between the slides for sort of everyone to catch their breath, have a coffee, and then go from there. Towards the end of the hour, we'll look at introducing an FAQ section. So if you want to have any questions that you may want to ask, please fire away. Obviously, we've also got the chat group there. So if you have any questions, please do also post them in there as well, and I can then answer them in turn. Okay. Okay, so as I mentioned, maybe there's a coffee and tea stop. Everyone's happy to go on. I'll continue.
Yep.
Okay. So when you initially see the hashtag symbol, it has various different meanings. You also got the pound. It can mean number. It can mean sharp, especially if you're into music. It's in regards to one of the notes being as a sharp hash symbol, or as I learned, it's also called an octothorpe. So it's got various different meanings, but it actually started back in the 1970s. And it was put into a very old computer. Back then, the machines would fill a room, and it was typically used into machine learning. So it was an actual initial thing that was put inside a machine to make it learn what it is you wanted it to do. Over the course of the next sort of 30 to 40 years, it then was put into standardized, generalized, excuse me, markup language. It was added to your home wind-up telephone. If you look at your telephone today, it's still there as a pound symbol. And often when we ring through to pay our water bills, that we often have, press the pound symbol to go back to the main menu. So it's been used for various different purposes over the years, but those are the main ones that it was used for up until kind of, I suppose, the internet sort of came about. And then in 2007, a young chap called Chris Messina suggested on Twitter, as a lot of Twitter's features come from the actual audience base, suggested that they use hashtags as a way of bringing some kind of definition or meaning to the tweets, to almost categorize them into people's interests, people's thoughts, and the hashtag was born. Over the course of the next 7 years, obviously we then saw more and more social networks using them. Facebook took them on, LinkedIn took them on, and Pinterest has taken them on. So now hashtags are now becoming the fundamental way in which content has been categorized over the years. Equally, and there's also talk that hashtags are slowly but surely becoming one of those trends which they work on things like the feed. So when we talk about the feed on Instagram, for instance, we're talking about when you scroll up, as opposed to your stories, the hashtags within those stories aren't as good as what they are on the actual feed. In 2017, the hashtag turned 10, or should it be 40? As they're going back to the 1970s, hashtags have been around a lot longer than that, but obviously they have different meanings, different uses. Okay, so today's hashtag in total in the next 24 hours on just the social network Twitter, over 128 million hashtags will be used, and that is just purely on the social network Twitter. So every time you see a user tweeting and then puts a hashtag on there, that is just one example of it. We will all use different hashtags over the next sort of 24 hours ourselves. We will use things like hashtag food, hashtag fitness, whatever it may be. We'll use different hashtags in the next 24 hours to categorize what we're talking about. They can be used on a variety of social networks, as already discussed, so Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and as mentioned, even on Pinterest. They have become part of our language. I know my teenage son, he will sit there happily and go hashtag just saying. And I know that teenagers, they do use various different hashtags when they are actually now talking to each other as part of their language. Their use overall has now changed. It has defined how we are now finding content on social media. So it's gone from just purely being a feature to almost being a way of categorizing, a way of defining that particular tweet or topicizing that content. So hashtags are used to celebrate people's lives. They've equally been used in instances whereby it has brought about political change. In some countries, you've had people starting hashtags to raise awareness of dictatorship, of political change, and social media has been used to bring about that change. Hashtags effectively are how we communicate with each other via social media and using the feed. So your feed on Facebook is what was once called the wall is now called your feed. Same for Twitter, it's the same sort of process. All the content that you can see when you first sign into Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Okay, so the next sort of 24 hours, these are typically the generic hashtags that you can expect people to be using. So things like love, Instagood on Instagram, photo of the day. This morning, I believe on Twitter, it was Monday motivation. And I know throughout the whole week, you can take part in Tuesday motivation, Wednesday motivation. And typically it's people showcasing how they start their mornings, whether it's a routine of exercise, whether it's a routine of a nice hot cup of coffee, whatever it may be. You'll typically find hashtag day motivation trending on Twitter. You may also see hashtag happy, cute, follow me, like for like, the kind of vanity hashtags that I would regard them as, certainly things like follow me and like for like. So that's one thing I'd sort of say there. So when it comes to your hashtag etiquette, each social network has a recommended amount of hashtags. So for instance, you'll see people say to you, you should be using 8 hashtags on Twitter, or you should be using 6 hashtags on Facebook. Each platform has its own recommended number of hashtags that you should be utilizing. And within the documentation for each platform, you can easily find this information. So for Twitter, it regards 1 to 2 hashtags as optimal. On Facebook, it's 1 to 3. LinkedIn, no more than 3. Instagram, a minimum of 8. I believe you can go up to 30 hashtags on Instagram. Whether you should use all 30, I think it very much comes down to you and how specific you want to be, but then equally, how much of a mass audience do you also want to reach? You have to wager up. That post you're putting out on Instagram, is it more for your specific audience, or is it actually for the whole kind of platform, I suppose? And obviously, again, for Pinterest as well, you've got the minimum of 8. But always use with Pinterest, interesting enough, is you always put your brand name first. The reason being is because if people are looking for you on Pinterest and you've used, I don't know, let's say for instance, hashtag boost digital media, all your pins will come up with that hashtag within it. One thing I've sort of said here is to unlink your social media accounts. There's nothing more infuriating, and I don't think I'm alone with this. When you hop onto Twitter and they have got nearly 16 hashtags after a picture which then has a link to their Instagram, it is quite infuriating to think, well, what are you showing me? I've got to come off the platform, go on to Instagram, and then have a look at what it is you've posted. Whereas ideally, what you'd like to do is put that content onto the platform, in this instance Twitter, and let people see it from there. So ensure that you're offering something new on each of your platforms that you're on every single day of the week. So if you're on Facebook, one post there. If you're on Twitter, something different on there. If you're on Instagram, a different post on there. Stagger your content so that you can share it over time on each platform, but not all in one go. I'm hoping that makes some kind of sense. And at the end there, obviously the most important thing is to find hashtags that are appropriate and are in line with your overall business and social media strategy. So have a look at something like Right Tag I've recommended there. There are other tools available that will give you some kind of recommendation of what hashtags you should be using. Okay, so these are two tweets that I sent out a couple of weeks ago, and my hypothesis back then was that if I tweet with 1 to 2 hashtags as recommended by Twitter, then actually my audience base is going to be far greater. After all, the platforms recommended, that's what I use. I then carried out the same experiment again, literally at the same time with additional hashtags. I think in total there's I think there's around 8 hashtags there that I've then used on the right-hand side. So I've done 2 different examples, one with the recommended amount and then one without the recommended amount, basically the number that I typically see people using if they're posting from Instagram or Facebook. Both of them don't contain links, so there are no links on here. We haven't tagged anyone in the photo. It's just purely a generic tweet that we put out there to raise awareness of a chat that I run every Friday evening. The results were, to be honest with you, they were confusing. I half expected to be 100% correct in my hypothesis that actually we would reach a larger audience, we'd have greater engagement following Twitter's 1 to 2 recommendation. What's interesting is the one that had the 2 tweets there, and as you can see, the impressions are greater. Yes, we reached more people in that regard, 319 compared to 309. But the engagement rate based on the 2 hashtags that we used is actually lower than when we used 8. So it kind of blows my hypothesis of it. If you use 2 hashtags rather than 8 out of the water, which is really quite frustrating, given that it's on the documentation. I do wonder if I was to run this experiment again, but leave a 24-hour gap between the 2, whether actually we would see a different set of results, whether actually we would see greater engagement on the one tweet and then less engagement on the other. I'd have to run it again to see what would happen, and obviously I'd put those results up on our website for people to have a look at and see what they make of it. But I did find that really fascinating, to sort of look at those figures and go, wow, okay, so the impressions are there, but the engagement is actually a lot lower. So what's going on with that? Okay, so if everyone's, I can see we've got a question from Tara. Tara, are you happy for me to answer that at the end of the session? Fantastic. Okay, great. If anyone needs to recharge a coffee, get a tea, feel free to do so, or if you're happy, I can continue. Okay. So let's look at a simple hashtag. So this is one that we put up, just simply called hashtag power. And make sure you use this during and before and after the workshop. Just let us know how we're doing. Drop us a tweet and drop me a message, and I'll find it on that hashtag. So this is a typical, basic, very simple hashtag that we've used, that we've put together, and you can put it in your tweets and so forth. So we mentioned at the start about keyword hashtags. So don't confuse these with keywords that you are used to find content on things like Google or Yahoo. That's a different set of keywords. Pinterest keywords are based around the hashtags that you have put onto your pins. So when you pin a a blog post, for instance, that you may have found online, you can then actually start using hashtags to categorize that pin. And then when someone comes onto Pinterest and searches for, I don't know, let's say, for example, they're searching for, searching for breakfast. So type into Google, not Google, Pinterest, breakfast in Torquay. So you may have the pins on your, you have the keywords on your pins, the words, things like Torquay, your brand name. So it could be Cafe 123. These kinds of keywords that people, when they type in breakfast in Torquay, your pin's going to come up along with others. Now obviously those keywords or those pins will be based on the algorithm that Pinterest has set. A lot of social networks now are running on algorithms. They're no longer based purely on what post hits there first. They are all algorithm based. So the posts that we all see will chop and change depending on how we've all engaged with them. The next sort of thing as well is keywords that we also use on Instagram as well. Again, it's how we're finding pins and posts. So when you type into any kind of search box, things are coming up based around what's within that post. And it is typically based on the actual hashtags that are within each of the posts. As mentioned there, and as mentioned before, your Pinterest, your first keyword you should always be using is your brand name. It shouldn't be anything else. The first pin that you put on, your first keyword within that pin should be hashtag your brand name, whatever the brand name may be. And as mentioned there, they're based on hashtags act as keywords and on the respective networks like Facebook or Instagram. So creating your own hashtag, are there any benefits? Yes, it's free. It's certainly there's no sort of special requirement that you need to fulfill to be able to set up a hashtag. You could go ahead after this presentation and simply create your own hashtag simply by using the hashtag or pound symbol on your keyboard and typing whatever you want the hashtag to be. They're great for building customers. They're great for building a community. They're great for building almost a group of fans around your brand. They're great for that. It's a quick route to engagement. So more customers that you serve and the more you tell them about your hashtag, the more people like to engage with it, interact with it, and interact with you as a result. And what's quite exciting with hashtags is they are cross-platform. So you can take them onto Instagram, you can move them onto Facebook. Obviously, Twitter is kind of the starting block, but you can move them across the multiple platforms. It really does depend again on what platforms you are on. If you're just starting out, I would highly recommend you start out purely on one social media platform based on where your demographics or audiences are based. So if they're young, if they're teenagers, for instance, I would say let's start off with something like Instagram. If they're younger than teens, so sort of 13, sort of 12 to 13, maybe to consider TikTok. Obviously, that's the new kind of name in the social media circles. How great it is, I'm unsure. It's not something that we've signed up for ourselves. I think social media, there's enough social media networks already out there with Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I think to start off another one, we'd have to find more content that we've got to post onto TikTok, and it's a case of it's going to be overkill for us as a small agency. There are drawbacks to starting a hashtag. It takes time. With Boost to Obey, today we're now getting the kind of engagement that I wanted when I first started out. With it, it's taken a good 8 years to get to the point whereby people are using us every single day, every day of the week without much of a prompt from us. Occasionally it requires us to hop on and say, pop hashtag Boost to Obey in your tweets. A lot of the time people now are just doing it on the fly. But as I say, it does take time to get to that point. As mentioned at the start, there are 128 million other hashtags that will be used in the next 24 hours. So your hashtag has to somehow stand out from the crowd. Now that could be done through various different ways. You could make it beneficial to them. You could do something. You could offer some kind of reward for them to using your hashtag. It is obviously reliant on the platform. So let's say tomorrow morning or in the next couple of years, Facebook and Twitter decide hashtags are no longer how they want to deal with content. They now want to decide a different way of categorizing it. Those hashtags could change overnight, and in which case the hashtags that we've all spent time building will be useless. So we'd have to find another way around how do we get our content to our target audience. The next one is obviously hashtags can be abused. You will, if you have, for instance, you do have internet trolls. If they pick up on something that they're not too happy with, obviously they'll get on the back of it and start promoting their own agenda, which is never a good thing. The classic one obviously is political parties. You will equally, if you type into any kind of social network, you will see mudslinging going on between either the two different sides of the political spectrum, which is one of the drawbacks, I think, of using hashtags is that they will get abused by people. Okay, so we're looking into creating your own hashtag. It's very much a case of start with why. Why do you want to create your own hashtag? As I said, there's 128 million other hashtags out there. Why do you want to create your own? Is it purely based because your competitors have one? Is it because you wanted to trend? Discover why you want to do it. Have a dive into the reasons as to why and the whys and wherefores of you wanting to start that hashtag. Go deep, go into the core values of your own business, and base your hashtag around those core values. So if you're focusing on improving, on bettering people's lives, make your hashtag focused around that. Make it fun, but obviously make it part of your overall marketing kind of plan, I suppose, and base it also on what you want to achieve. So for instance, there we've got more followers, greater exposure. Is it purely vanity? So that is, you just want a hashtag because everyone's got a hashtag. With vanity, I think it's a case of, if you've got 10,000 followers like we have, it's great, but it doesn't mean anything. Those followers, you could have 200,000 followers, but unless they're buying from you, you're not. They're worthless. They're not bringing anything to your business. So you don't necessarily have a follower problem. You have a conversion problem. People aren't converting from follower to customer, which was recently covered on a social media examiner podcast I was listening to a while ago. Obviously, base your hashtags around your ideal client avatar. So that is, when you sit down and think about your ideal client, what do they look like? Who are they? How old are they? Where do they shop? Where do they eat? Do they eat out a lot? Do they go home? Do they have children? Let's give this person a name. Let's call him Steve. Does Steve live alone? Is he married? Does he have kids? It's really diving into nuts and bolts of who is your ideal client, and more importantly, where does that ideal client hang out? Are they a Facebook user? Are they an Instagram user? Are they a Twitter fan? And it's just putting your brand onto those platforms in front of everyone, and delivering it that way. So that's one thing to sort of keep in mind as well, that when you're posting onto social media, is your client audience there? If they're not there, then you're wasting your time. So sniff out where they are at. And the other sort of question is how and where will you use your new hashtag? Is it going to be on one account, or are you going to use it across the platform? So when we started out, I made the silly mistake of going on to Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest. I registered across the whole social network spectrum, so that's the right way to do it. If I could have my time again, I would purely focus all my energies on one, which would have been Twitter, and I would have literally spent all my time posting content, posting regular updates onto that platform. So that's something else to obviously consider. Always start off small and then build up from there. If you're trying to get to all of them too quickly, you'll set yourself up for almost a bit of a failing, because you've got to post content onto each platform. So you've got to post a picture on Instagram. You've then got to post a blog post on Twitter. You've then got to post an event on Facebook. You're setting yourself up to do a lot of work, and unless you've got quite a strong team behind you that are quite prepared to dive into that content and dive into putting the content diary together for you, you are creating a lot of work for yourself. At the bottom there, we've looked at owning a chat or an hour, and I think we'll look at those in a bit more detail in a minute. But effectively, they are a networking kind of platform whereby you can use things like down here in Torbay, we have Torbay Hour, we have Devon Hour, we have the Boost Torbay Chat on a Friday. So those are things, there's different hours that you can get involved in. I think locally they're sort of across the UK, or you can start your own. There's nothing wrong with doing that. With a chat, it's normally an account bring on a special guest. So we could, let's say for example, if we were to do one as an agency, we would bring in a special guest and get that guest to ask our followers questions, and who in turn would respond. And it creates some kind of social atmosphere on the platforms like Twitter and Facebook. Okay. So the next part we're looking at is these emojis. Now, I mentioned at the start, emojis are great. They can be used for various different things, and there have been occasions where they've been used incorrectly. Emojis are great if they're used in the correct context. And they're another piece of technology that are steeped in computing history. And over the years, many businesses have tried to get these emojis trending, and it's only been recently, since the dawn of the smartphone, have we seen this explosion in people using emojis, and equally chat rooms. They've also been assisting that kind of putting the emojis out there to people. There are instances when the context has got people into deep water. So some symbols there that have often been used in emojis have got people into the auto, for instance, the bomb, the water pistol, and the aubergine have all caused cases where the eyebrows have been raised or have caused a security issue. Certainly with the bomb, I think someone popped that on when they were just about to board a plane and wrote "looking forward to a blast on my holiday" and simply put the bomb, and it created a security issue for one reason or another. Surprisingly, with emojis, if you put them into your posts, now obviously ensure that you use the emoji in the correct context, but 50% of Facebook posts with those emojis will get a higher engagement and 30% got more shares. So I find that really quite a fascinating statistic. It's not something that we've tried ourselves, but I think if that is the case, start using them. Put them into your Facebook posts and put them into your tweets, into your Instagram posts. Again, please ensure that they're in the correct context. And I think the reason they get that kind of engagement is down to the images. So for our own hashtag, we use the rocket symbol, and often if you get something trending onto social media, it will come up with the wording, but then also the little emoji at the end, making it more visual, making it more clearer to see and stand out from what other topics are trending. So the one we've got there is the picture of the peach. Other brands and businesses will be using your emojis. So unfortunately, you can't own your own emoji unless you obviously create one. And I think there are probably ways in which you can get those into circulation, but I would suspect you'd have to pay millions to get it out there. The peach there is quite an interesting one. The reason a lot of juice companies started out using the peach symbol, but then obviously quickly realised that a lot of people don't regard that as a symbol for juice. They regard it for the symbol for your bum. So that's something to also just bear on the side of caution. The emojis can have different meanings. So if you are using them, come back to your context, come back to the purpose as to why you're using them. Again, I put there, they do have an impact in terms of visibility. How many times have you seen a hashtag with an emoji trending and clicked it? So if you're on Twitter, if you're on Facebook or Instagram and it's trending, you're likely to click it more than you are just to click a blank, a simple text hashtag. Okay, so we're looking into how you can get other people to increase the use of your hashtag, or how you can increase the use of your hashtag. The important thing is once you've made it, that's great, but only you know you've made it. So you now need to get that hashtag out there into circulation, get your friends to use it, get your suppliers to use it, get your customers to use it, build almost a community of both fans, and if you're fortunate enough to have customers that have become brand advocates, get them to use it, get them to push this hashtag out there for you. The more people see it, the more likely it is that people are going to use it. And as a direct result of that, I think over time you'll build a community, build a following, and build more customers and build more brand advocates. I mentioned there, get involved in local discussions on the chats and the hours. So don't just create your hashtag and then leave it. So get involved into a local hour. It is a bit cheeky, but you can simply hop on. We maybe ask the hour owner's permission or the chat owner's permission to do this, but hop on and simply sort of say, if you enjoyed this chat like we have, why not join in our own chat between X and Y time, talking about whatever subject you want it to be. Always ensure that you're adding value to someone's journey, whether it's a follower, whether it's a customer, whether it's a stranger. At the end of it, you need to be adding value to these people's kind of lives, and that is done through content, through social media. So I'll put their leave value-driven comments on your followers' posts, and don't forget to include your hashtag. So on Facebook, for instance, we will typically respond to every comment with hashtag #BoostOrBay. Equally, we'll respond on Twitter with the same thing, because at the end of the day, we want people to be seeing that hashtag, using it, and almost creating our own community around it. Important to include it in your own social media post or profile. So if you actually included it, when you do a search on Twitter for, let's say, I don't know, let's say coffee and cake, and that's included in your account, you will then appear in the search results for coffee and cake. When you click on the account section, all the people that have listed that have got coffee and cake in their profile will appear in the search area in the results. Again, I've mentioned there, build a community around your hashtag, and shout out about the the perks of people using your hashtag. So do they get a retweet? Do they get I don't know, a free gift if they've retweeted so much? Do they get an ebook? Is there some kind of reward for using your hashtag as opposed to using one of the many competitors that are out there? And it's almost a case of giving it a go, seeing what works, and working it into your own marketing strategy a little bit. So we're looking into how hashtags can impact your digital assets. Now, if we think of it as a hashtag as a way of topicizing a tweet or a post, let's say, for example, you're running a classic example is we put a blog post up about the hashtag ebook. And in our hashtags, we put ebook, hashtags, and I think from memory we also put business. And we pop that onto social media because our target audience are people in business that want to download an ebook about hashtags. So the way in which I look at this is if you can somehow topikize your posts, it almost acts as a filter to filter out those that aren't interested in your content from the word go. And in which case people can click on the link and know what they're going to see is going to be related to the post. Now, obviously, what you don't want to do is put a hashtag in there that is of no relevance to your post. So let's say, for example, let's say it's a blog post about clothing, but on Twitter you've seen ice cream is trending. So you think, oh, I'll jump on the back of that. Your post about clothing has nothing to do with ice cream unless you've spelt it down, in which case you could sort of put it in there. So it's a case of waging up, what do you want to reach? Do you want to reach a mass audience, or do you want to get specific? If you produce a piece of content that's for a specific audience, I would recommend that you use a hashtag to really act as a filter it all out, filter out that mass audience. Obviously, also think you can also use hashtags which help with the inbound methodology there, aka inbound marketing. Consider using a hashtag on posts about new resources your company's put together. I've mentioned an ebook. You can use them on social media posts with links back to your blog posts. Again, it's acting as a filter. That's what you're kind of doing, is you're filtering out the mass from your ideal client avatar. In terms of website, what it has on the effect on that, we found that using hashtags does increase our traffic. We have noticed that since we're using either 3 or 8, and most recently it's been 8 hashtags here and there that we've used, we have noticed higher traffic coming to our website. Whether that's traffic that is the right traffic, i.e. traffic that's going to convert into a customer, that remains to be seen as we go on. Again, ensure that you're targeting the right people on social media, which will reduce the amount of unnecessary traffic coming to the site. We've looked at marrying up hashtags with website categories. So if you have a blog, let's say you've got 30 different categories on there, why not try putting a hashtag on Twitter as a category on your website and then linking back to it and just seeing what kind of reaction you get from traffic. One of the interesting questions that I get asked quite often is, can you get something to trend on social media? In the entire 8 years that I have ran BoostUp8, it's not something that I have achieved. It's not something that I now spend too much of my time trying to achieve. The reason being is that one social media post that you put out there, is it going to do what you want it to do? Is it better than building a relationship with your audience, building up content, drip feeding them information and adding value throughout the entire life cycle of that follower or that stranger, from stranger to customer? Or is it worth just saying this one social media post that gets you tons of followers but 0 sales as a result? I think it's better to start off small and start off with your content, posting content up, adding value at every corner, bringing something to the table for your audience to read, and then slowly but surely building a following organically, rather than hoping for that one post is going to do it all. Obviously, one of the things that we would sort of recommend, if you really are anxious to get something trending on Twitter, as a rough guide, it takes at least 200 accounts tweeting more than 200 times within a single hour to get something to trend on Twitter. You'd obviously have to test that theory. Now, I wouldn't say try and fool the system, because obviously Twitter and social networks are very clever. So if you wanted to go off and register 200 Twitter accounts, not sure why you'd want to do that, and then try and get all to post that many times, that would probably result in some trending. But I think equally Twitter would see what you were doing and regard it as spam, and potentially cause a few other issues for you. One thing to bear in mind is there is no magic formula to achieving something to trend on Twitter or trend on any social network platform. There is no there is no guide. So if you do X, you will get Y. It is a case of putting content out there and seeing what your audience wants. As I've written there, content is still very much king. Without content, you wouldn't have Twitter, you wouldn't have Facebook, you wouldn't have Pinterest. Content is still the baby in all of this. Again, a lot of it depends on your audience making use of that hashtag. So unless you've got a really good community that are all using, for instance, with hashtag Boost Sorbet, we get a lot of people using us on a daily basis, but it's not all in the same hour. It's spread out to the day. Apart from on a Friday, where between 8 and 9, we'll get a lot of people using our hashtag, but nowhere near sort of the accounts that is maybe required to get something to trend on Twitter. It comes down back to your audience. Are they using it, and the content you're putting out there, is it valuable? It does vary from platform to platform based on algorithm and purpose. I would say Facebook today, as we know, is no longer geared more towards growth or organic growth of pages as Twitter is. So I would say if you want to build a following for your business, start off on Twitter and then grow from there. The next sort of port of call is to use a combination of daily posts, tweets, reusing and sharing content, and being as proactive as you can be on social media. The more that you're on social media, the more that you're engaging with your audience, the more people are engaging with you, the more over time your tweets or your posts are going to be seen higher in the algorithm as opposed to somebody who isn't. And most importantly, don't get hung up on focusing on that big single piece of content that may or may not trend. You could put hours into focusing on that whilst your audience is sat there waiting for that next piece of content, whilst you're trying to get something to trend. You're wasting hours, I think, to a point. Okay, so we've covered quite a lot in the past sort of 45 minutes to an hour. So as a bit of a summary for you, hashtags are ultimately how we topicize our social media posts, our tweets. They're how we give some kind of meaning to them. There is some impact on using the recommended amount of hashtags versus more than recommended. As we saw in the 2 screenshots from those 2 tweets we sent out, the impressions were higher, but the engagement was lower. I'm very much okay. So let's try that experiment again, see what we come up with, and I'll post results on our website and see what you think from there. I would still highly recommend that you link your social media accounts from each other. That is a very old school way of doing it. One time a day you could link your Facebook to your Twitter, Twitter to your another platform, and it would just, that one piece of content would go across all platforms. It's not how it's done today, unfortunately. Today, users expect different pieces of content on each platform. So if you're on Facebook and if you're on Twitter, do put out different pieces of content onto each. Creating your own hashtag, it's going to take time. It requires some investment, not a great deal, but it requires some investment and a determination for it to grow. So you've got to be pushing it out there every day, really showing it to people that if you use this hashtag, there is a reward for it. Make sure you use it everywhere. On Pinterest, again, reinforcing that, using your brand, as I say, as the keyword first before any others. With emojis, if you're using them, use them carefully and within the context of the actual post. So do keep in mind that when using them. With every post that you're putting out, with every tweet, with every post, obviously you want the person to download your piece of content. But equally, you kind of need to be thinking, right, this person has done my piece of content. They're obviously interested in my brand. The next port of call is to either give them another piece of content to look at, or is that piece of content you've given them hot enough for you to be able to pick up that phone and go, hi there, this is so-and-so. Would you like to buy my product? It's literally about, at the end of the day, those posts that you're putting out has to serve a purpose for your business. They have to be bringing something back to the table, whether it's engagement, whether it's revenue. Obviously, the end goal with all of this is you want your users to sign up. You want your followers to become customers. So always think of that in the back of your head. I need to put the content out there, yes, but equally they need to become a customer at some stage in that process. Not all of them will. A lot of them will fall out the wagon. They'll just download the resource because they like the idea of it and may implement it themselves. But at the end of the day, not everyone that is going to download your content is going to become a customer. It will take a bit of time trying to find who buys and who doesn't. I'll put at the bottom there, don't get caught on making it trendy. Focus on adding value to your current followers and strangers every day, and show up every day on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you're using LinkedIn as well, do the same there as well. Okay, I think I've covered enough there to do with the power of hashtags. I can see there's a few questions on the chat from Tara. Are you happy for me to go through those now?
Yep.
Great stuff. What was that very harsh hashtag on Twitter about? Oh, sorry, Tara, could you refresh my memory? Sorry.
Hi, Robert. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. I thought I'd stop typing in there. That one was just about Chris's first Twitter tweet. I was just interested to know what it was about. Like, what were they tweeting about? Was it something political? What was it, a movement? What was it?
I think when Chris posted it out, it was literally a suggestion. How did people feel about hashtags being used to topicize a tweet? And I think that's what I literally did put out there as a way of categorizing it. If I can find it, I'll send it to you in an email because it is quite fascinating. He literally put it out there, and Twitter took to it like a duck to water. And Twitter is renowned for doing this. That if you put a suggestion up on Twitter, for some reason they then think, oh, what a great idea. Let's implement that into the actual platform. And a lot of the new features that we have today on Twitter are direct results of its follower base.
Oh, cool. Thanks so much, Robert. Thanks.
That's all right. Another question from Tara. Can you own your own hashtag, as in claim your own hashtag? You can't necessarily own it. No, unfortunately, there's no way for you to sign up and say that hashtag belongs to me. So you will get other people using it. It's a case of it's based on its community, isn't it? So the idea of social network is that everyone's sociable. So the hashtag, I would suspect, again, it just forms part of that social circle. There's no way to set up private hashtags just yet. It would be good if they did. I could see that catching on quite quickly, and I could certainly see big companies certainly paying to brand up and own their own hashtag. I can certainly see that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Cool, thank you.
All right. Another one from Tara. How would you do damage control around a hashtag that has been abused by a troll? Would you make a fresh hashtag? I think when it comes to trolls, I wouldn't say start a new hashtag, because at the end of the day, it's almost being backed into a corner. You're giving them control. I would certainly say no need to make a new hashtag. If you can find a way to block them from Twitter or from your account, that would certainly help. It would stop them engaging with you. Obviously, it wouldn't stop them engaging with your customers. You could look at reporting the account to actual Twitter itself. Obviously, you then have to rely on them having a look into the account, diving into how they've been behaving overall across their platform. But I would certainly, those are the two things I'd recommend: is block them and then report them if it's still ongoing. And the same with your customers. If they're being badgered by a troll, it again comes down to, if they want to block them, it comes down to them. Do they find it intimidating? Do they find it abusive? Unfortunately, it's quite difficult to block them from an actual hashtag itself.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Robert. Thanks for that.
No problem at all. Are there any other questions? No. Okay. Fantastic. Okay, I think that's brought us to the end of the presentation. There with me, wait for my computer to freeze. That's the end of the presentation. So many thanks everyone for attending today. It's been great to sort of see you all. Obviously, if you do have any questions, you can email me. My email address is robert@boostdigitalmedia.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Do give us a follow. We're normally at Boost Digital Media. On Twitter, we're at Boost Digimedia. Do give us a follow. The ebook is already out, so hop onto our website, download a copy of it. We have set up an email capture form so that we can keep you guys up to date on all the latest information and news. And obviously, we are going to rerun the tweets with the 2 and 8 hashtags and see how we do this time around, and see if I can prove my hypothesis correct. So yeah, download our ebook. Thank you very much for coming. If there are no more questions today, I will leave it there. I'll put a recording up onto our website as well for those that didn't make it with us. It'll also be on YouTube. And any sort of queries, do drop me a message, and I'll take it from there.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Have a great day, everyone. You take care.
Thanks a lot.
You too. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.